Alright, welcome back. Picked up this Miyata. So this is the picture from Marketplace. What the guy picked it up from, he said it was too small for him, but it seemed like the right size because it was about my height, but nonetheless, he wanted to get rid of it, so yeah, I picked it up. Pretty cool bike. You don't see a lot of Miyatas in Australia, or they're harder to get, especially the mountain bikes, but pretty stoked on this one. It has a 200 GS grip set. You can see, just plastic levers, these STI grips, and paddle shifters, 7-speed. A lot of rust on the top here. And then the same on the other side, but this shifter is, the plastic's broken. So maybe we can fix that somehow, or I can switch it out. A lot of rust on top. Got this just normal stem with a canti brake going through. Not sure what headset that is, but an older style, ball bearing style. Yeah, cool Miyata graphics at the front. Came with this rack. It's a lacquer rack. I think these are made for 700C actually, but nice little rack. I think I'll probably take that off, put another bike. They mounted all these little tabs on so you can kind of like hook stuff over. And then it just goes down to here. You can see it goes on the inside. I think if it's on the outside, it would tilt up too much. And then here, Shimano brakes. Not sure what these are, but plastic, so it can't be too high. Oh yeah, it's 200. And then brake pads, great condition, almost never used. And got these Kenda K-Rad 26 by 2.3, and then the Araya rims, of course, so we can focus in on that. 1.5. It's a little bit wider. I think these rims are more old school, but yeah, these are the alloy ones, I'm pretty sure, so a little bit lighter. Going down tube, got the Miyata graphic, same with the sport run up the top. So these are just kind of like stickers over the top. They didn't actually decal them under the paint, so you gotta be careful of those when I'm just cleaning up the frame. And then again, 200 GS front mech, pretty rough looking. 200 GS crankset. These are really interesting crankset because they're actually bolted, but they got this big plastic thing on top. I don't think you can actually take the plastic thing off without damaging it, but apparently you're just meant to bend these back and then change the chain rings out that way, which is pretty weird, I think. Cool Miyata graphic here. Kumali exclusive tubing. I don't know how exclusive that is. Seat posts, quick release, seat post clamp, 25.4, old school style with the guts here. And this is a Shimano Stealth Pro, which is a racing saddle, reflector, and then 200 GS Remac as well. Some damage on that, but I think it goes pretty straight. Cassette looks alright. And then same rims on this one. Kenda, not sure how to say that, but I think they said this was a 2.1, 26 by 2.1, but it actually looks bigger than this Kenda, so that's kind of strange as well. And then the hubs, I don't know what hubs they are, rotated, there's no graphics on it. I'd say they're maybe like X-Age or something similar. And then got these new animal pedals, pretty cool, spin pretty well. Probably take these off as well, put it on another build, keep this one black hopefully. But yeah, that's basically it. Pretty good pickup. Lots of stuff to switch out. So it is a little bit bigger than what I normally ride, so I'll probably just do this one up and sell it off, but I think it's going to be a pretty nice bike. Alright, just breaking down the bike and just taking off the pedals off here, a little bit WD-40, give it a soak, and then I'm using this old tool that I had just to kind of loosen it. This tool actually, when I first started working on bikes, I used this tool for everything, but I kind of retired it for now. But here, once you get a proper pedal wrench, it comes off real easy. But yeah, that hammer and tapping does help loosen it a little bit first if you need a little extra power. Alright, so yeah, taking this front rack off, so you can see it's just mounted to the eyelet. For front racks, I don't know why, but they seem to be really hard to get in Australia. So I'm going to put this on another bike. I'll probably try to mod it a little bit, but I'll probably save that for another video. Here just, taking off the seat post. Luckily it came out, not rusted in. Taking off the chain, just pick any spot. I'm still using my chain breaker on my multi-tool, which is pretty bad, but it works. Cutting the cables makes it a little bit easier when you're taking off the parts. Taking off the rear mech, no issues there. Taking off the front mech as well. I think I did end up spraying a little bit of WD-40 on the bolts just to help loosen them up. And then all these bolts were kind of 9mm, which is different from your 8 and 10, which is a little bit more common. But yeah, I need to use a shifter. I do have a socket for a 9, which I ended up using a little bit later. Here, taking off the cranks. Always a good sign when they have the crank caps on them, so they're not rusted out. But yeah, I think these came off pretty easy. I didn't have any issues with them. Once you loosen it, make sure that comes out, and then check for a washer. This one didn't have a washer, but some of them do. And then, to take off your cranks, make sure you wind in your crank removal tool all the way in. And what I like to do is tighten it, just like quarter turn, just to make sure it's fully seated. And then, wind down the top bit, and then it should pop it off. This is probably the scary bit, but usually if it's fully seated and if the cranks aren't seized on, it should come off pretty easy. You can see mine came off real easy. And then same with the other side, just pop that cap off, undo this bolt, make sure there's no extra wash in there before you put in your crank removal tool. And then do that half turn again, and then wind it down, it should come out. Alright, so that's off. And then taking the bottom bracket out, using WD-40 again, use this lock ring tool. Everyone puts on these really tight for some reason, but they don't have to go on super tight. But here, bottom bracket came off pretty easily. And you can see the old ball bearings that are caged. And then taking off the other side here, just at the cup. And this came off pretty easily as well. It was a little tighter in the threads, but just keep winding it and it came off. Just be careful as you do it. Should loosen up. Here, taking off the reflector. It's a little bit tricky, but I decided sometimes it's easy just to cut all the cables first. Be careful you don't cut the hanger cable if you plan to reuse it. I ended up making new ones anyway, but if you want to keep them, don't cut them, obviously. Here, taking off the canties, just unscrew those. Those were, I think, 10mm bolts. Here, cutting all the cables. I'm not going to reuse these because they're rusted through. And then taking off the grips. Once again, I have a little spoke which I can kind of like push in, and then creates a little bit of space, and then you can spray WD-40 in there, and then this should slide off. Here, taking these old style levers, they have a little bolt that goes through to the handlebar. It's inside the lever, and you can see handlebar's pretty scratched up because of those old style clamps. They kind of just dig into the metal. And then here, a little bit of WD-40 on stem bolt, taking that off, and then taking the stem off. A little tip here, you can tap with a hammer if it's stuck. Push that bolt down and it should free up the wedge that's inside. and then yeah, I like to spray WD-40 in there just to give it a clean, to help it when I clean it. Here, this quick release was really hard to get off, so I ended up using a little bit of plastic and a clamp just to clamp it tight to unwind it. But after getting a little bit more power, it wasn't a problem. Here, undoing the back axle. This was bolted and the front was quick release. And then yeah, the frame's looking pretty good, pretty hyped on it, taking off the little bottle bolts. This is what it's looking like. Everything came off fairly easy. I think the frame's actually in pretty decent condition. Not too many scratches, not too much rust as well. So yeah, it should clean up pretty well. Pretty stoked on this. And the way I clean it, I just use a soap and detergent spray. It's just like a little bit of detergent in a bottle of water, and sometimes a little bit of Dove soap in there. Just maybe like a 5-cent piece, maybe even smaller, and then you just spray it down, wipe it down. Here I'm going to show you how to use T-cut. Clean up these little black marks. So this is after cleaning it with a rag. These black marks didn't come off. But you can use a little bit of T-cut, which is kind of like a polishing compound, and what it does is kind of really finely sands off the top layer, and then you can get rid of those hard to get rid of marks. And yeah, you can see it's looking pretty good. Also stops oxidization from helps stops rust and corrosion, which is pretty cool as well. And then yeah, basically I just did it on the whole frame. And then here, taking off these warning stickers. A lot of people like to leave these on. I'm not sure why, but it seems like a common thing I find on all the bikes that I get. But yeah, a little bit of WD-40, and then I end up using pliers to get this off, because when I use my finger it was real slippery. So yeah, it kind of made it real easy. I might do this more in the future if the decals are hard to get off. But yeah, that came off pretty well. And then again, WD-40 for the residue to kind of dissolve that, and then wipe it off. Once again with the soap spray, give it a nice clean. And yeah, this is the frame all cleaned up, looking pretty sweet, I think. I did T-cut a bunch of it. You can see where it's a little bit more glossy is where I T-cut. You can see some scratches on the fork, but you know, you can only do so much. And then here, I got these Maxxis DTHs that I was just going to chuck on the wheels for now. I don't know if I'm going to keep them on there. But yeah, you can see this rim didn't actually have rim tape when I took the old tire off for some reason. But that was an easy fix. I just put yeah, electrical tape around two times, I think 2 or 3 times, I can't remember. I think it's just 2 times. And then yeah, it should work. It's pretty funny when you take apart old bikes and then you find things that people do that you wouldn't expect, or maybe they just don't know it needed rim tape. But yeah, I'm surprised he didn't get a bunch of flats. Here's the DTH's 2.3s in there. You can see, yeah, pretty decent, pretty good width. I think you can even go to 2.5 on this frame in the rear stays. And yeah, I was just checking it before I actually commit to the tire. And then here, taking off the dock disc, I use a hammer and an Allen key to kind of crack it. You kind of like touch it and it would crack, so got rid of that. I think it looks better without it. Took off the reflectors, put the front tire on, and yeah, I think it's looking pretty good. I think I'm not into tan wars, but I think it works pretty well with the bike, so I think I'm going to run them. And then I ran a little poll on Instagram if I should run drop bars on this, and I think it was 51% said yes, so I'm going to go ahead and do the drop bars on this. I got these old bars, they're pretty busted up, rusted, you can see from the old tape. There's all kind of, must have captured the moisture and then rusted it all up. But yeah, put on the drill press here and buff buff it up, try to get rid of most of the rust. You can see it kind of helped a bit. And then for the handlebars, I need to use more of like a wire head to really get rid of that other rust is really kind of like in there. But yeah, this is what it looks like. Also gave it a light sand with 600, and yeah, that residue was really hard to get off, but end up shaping up pretty nicely. They don't look brand new, but yeah, I was actually going to just chuck those handlebars out, but yeah, it's just give them a save. Here you can see the wheel's really tight on the right hand side, so it's not dished properly, so I'm going to tighten all the spokes on the left hand side, and then you can see just by squeezing them, that's how I'm going to do it. And then to work out how to tighten spokes, basically think of having a screwdriver going through the tire, and then righty-tighty, and then lefty-loosey. So if you keep that in your mind, then that's how you kind of tighten it. And after you tighten it, just make sure you give the spokes a squeeze to make sure the tension is out, make sure it feels kind of right. It's a little bit hard to work out at first, but there's a bunch of tutorials online. And then here I just decided to show you how to get rid of kind of like a bump in your wheel, because I think this is a little bit harder than doing it left and right. So what you want to do is loosen the spokes in this area where the bump is, about 4 or 5 spokes, and then tighten the area after it and before it, and this should help kind of squeeze the rim back out. So yeah, this only works for little bumps. If the bump is huge and the rim is really deformed, it's not gonna fix it. But you know, you can try your best and see how much you can fix it. But yeah, you can see this ended up working pretty well. The divot's almost not there. And then straighten the wheel, you can see it's pretty centered in the forks, so that's good. And then for the levers, I'm using these XH Sport levers that I had. I think these are pretty cool. They had a little kind of like quick release here button where you can press it, and then it gives you a little bit more slack on the brake cable, which is pretty cool for changing out your tire, or people saying for wheel flex when you're doing time trials, but I think that's quite a joke. Alright, cleaning up all the parts. So yeah, here just taking everything apart, and what I'm doing is I'm sorting out all the rusty stuff that I'm going to put in evaporust, which gets rid of rust. And yeah, you can see kind of like everything here, pretty rusty on the front D, a little bit on the rear D. These BB cups seem pretty good. Hashimoto, haven't heard that before, haven't seen that before, but they seem pretty decent, so I'm going to clean those up. And then everything that's kind of rusty, I'm going to drop in the evaporust. Evaporust is a rust remover. It's like friendly on your hands. You can see the quill stem there. Still a bit of rust there, so I'm going to chuck that in as well. But yeah, it's friendly on your hands, and you can reuse it. I think it's a little bit expensive at the beginning, but yeah, you can. I've used mine for probably 2 years now, and it's still working. And then I still have I still have half a batch that's kind of like clean evaporust I haven't used yet. So I ended up getting the 5-gallon concentrate. Again, not sponsored by evaporust. It just works really well for me. Alright, so this is 24 hours later, soaked it for full 24 hours. You can see all the rust is gone from the rear mech. The bolt, almost all the rust is gone. Some of the rust is still in the stem. But you can see sometimes you pull it out and it looks rusty, but then once you wash it, some of the rust comes off. You can see I'm just rubbing that and all the rust is kind of falling off. So yeah, basically what you need to do is just take everything out, give it a good rinse, and then protect it with something to stop it from flash rusting. I use WD-40 to kind of protect it. Some people say you can dump in evaporust again, but I don't really like the smell of evaporust, so WD-40 works for me. And then here, yeah, you can see just letting everything out and giving it a good spray. You can still see there's some rust on places. If you do end up seeing that, what you need to do is just either dunk it again or use a wire brush to get it off. For this bottom bracket, I'm just going to clean all that stuff up as well with just WD-40 and a brush. Clean those little bearings out. Yeah, you can see some of the rust here, like I was talking about. Sometimes if you just soak it, it'll get rid of it, but yeah, sometimes a brush is a little bit quicker as well if you're in a rush. But yeah, overall, I think pretty good, pretty clean. And then here, yeah, you can see just using a wire brush. You can use a wire brush or a nylon brush. I ended up using this. I use the same wire brush now just because it's kind of so worn. It works pretty well for me. And yeah, just give it a good brush it down and then wipe it off, and then you can see, yeah, most of the rust is gone. If that still doesn't work, sandpaper. This is 600. I end up sanding all the rust off using sandpaper as well. It was kind of real stubborn, but yeah, ended up looking pretty good. Cleaning out these bearings. Yeah, this wedge had tons of rust on it. Took a lot of work to get most of the rust off that. What you can also do if you can't get rid of any final rust is use rust converter. Basically you paint it on and it turns the rust black as well, so that's another option. So all the parts are cleaned, and then here, because I'm running the quill stem on this bike, I'm going to need a hanger for the canti cable to go in. So luckily I had one from the giant build that I just did actually. So I ended up putting this one on. Looks pretty cool. It's just nice and flat, no weird shapes or anything. And then yeah, tighten the headset, put a cloth around the nut there if you want to protect it, stop it from scratching if it's like a colored one. If it's silver, usually you can get away with not putting a towel there. But yeah, it only takes a second to put the towel down. And then here, make sure you grease up your stem before you put it in. So yeah, it's time to kind of build the bike now. Finding the stem. So yeah, I'm going to run it actually like just pretty high up for it to be a little bit more comfortable. Just make sure it's still on the minimum insertion height. And then here, using my tool to kind of get the handlebar in. Just an old lever that I kind of modified, but yeah, it really helps if things are tight and you need to squeeze them out. Yeah, so the stem I could always drop a little bit later, I decided to keep it like this for now. But yeah, I think that's looking pretty good, looking pretty clean. I think the shape of the bars also look pretty good, how they just kind of rounded. And then putting the levers on, again, the bolt goes through the lever. If you just work on mountain bikes, you might not know this. So yeah, just want to point that out. And then matching up the lever, a good rule of thumb is usually just match it up, align with the bottom of the drop. But then what I always do is just always test it. You can also line up the top with the straight bar just to make sure they're even on both sides. And then yeah, get your hands on there. Make sure it feels comfortable on the drops, and then also on the hoods, or vice versa. Yeah, make sure you can still grab the brake lever, otherwise there's going to be issues. But yeah, this was feeling pretty good, so I decided that and started to tighten everything up. And then the bottom of the drop, I aligned with the top of the top tube on the same slope. Some people go horizontal, and some people, but yeah, you can do whatever's comfortable. Okay, here just showing you the springs. So there's a gold spring and a silver spring. They basically go in that hole. The gold one goes on the left hand side, and then the silver one goes on the right hand side, just like that. Yeah, if you've been taking old cantis apart, you might see this is a common thing to have gold and silver springs. If you have both silver, if all your springs are silver, you're just going to have to do trial and error, try to work it out. I do have a little tutorial on this if you are stuck, but yeah, should be easy to work out. And then yeah, basically you should spring back when you kind of push on it. But yeah, pretty straightforward. Alright, putting these on, a little bit of grease on the canti bolt, and then yeah, just screw it on. Not too much to it here. And if you feel like the tension is a little bit off, you can also put it in a different hole at the beginning. Usually I just go in the middle, and it seems to work pretty well for me. And yeah, just flip them back. Make sure if it's too tight, you might want to check your tension on your bolt. But usually you should be able to do your bolt up all the way, and it shouldn't affect the spring. Here you can put in a BB, grease it up, using the Dualco grease gun here that Boot Bike sent me. Pretty stoked on this. Been using this for every build. Pretty awesome. It's good to have a tool that you kind of just use and it works. You don't have to worry about it. And yeah, I can't remember, I got it maybe earlier this year or last year, I can't remember, but I'm still running off the same grease, so it's been lasting me a long time without having to refill. Here, putting on the bottom bracket shell. And then putting in the spindle. So the spindle, what you want to do is make sure it's going in the right way, especially if it's a different length on the left and right. Usually the writing on it should kind of guide you on which way it should go. But yeah, if you put the cranks on and for some reason it feels a little bit weird or it doesn't go on, then you'll know your spindle's on the wrong way, and then you just can flip it around. And then here what you want to do is just do this tight enough where there's no play, but the spindle still spins smoothly. And you have to have a combination of the actual BB and the lock ring just to kind of work with this. Sometimes it takes a little while, but once you get it dialed, it's dialed and you don't have to go back to it. It's going to feel good. I also sometimes I put the crank arm on to kind of move it with the crank arm because you get a little bit more leverage to get that kind of true tension or true tolerance, and yeah, that helps. Here, just cleaning out the pads here. These pads basically brand new, just cleaning out the file and then just giving them a light sand just to make sure they grip the rims a little bit better. Always helps. And then here, just putting the other cantis on. So I just put them kind of flush to the rim, and just make sure they spring back like that. Make sure they're pretty even. I do them about 9 degrees. Again, I have a little tutorial, but yeah, that's kind of how I'm doing it. Make sure they sit pretty well. You can also put a little bit of toe in, angle it a little bit, but this works pretty well for me. And then same with the back. Alright, putting the cables in, sizing the cable, so make sure you push the cable all the way into the lever before you cut it. And then yeah, just trim off the ends. You can see I had to trim it off a little bit a few times just to make sure it wasn't sharp. And then use a spoke and clear out the hole. You can also use a file to file off the end to make sure it's nice and neat. And for road levers, you got to use a different type of brake cable, so don't forget about that. See, it goes in that little hole there, and then here just adding a little bit of bike lube to the inside of the cables to make sure it's nice and smooth. It's actually smooth chain lube there as well. And then just yeah, I used a little bit of electrical tape just to keep the cables in place here. And this helps for when you put the bar tape on as well. You can see for the hanger cable, for the straddle cable, you got to use the mountain bike one. Sometimes I just use old cables for this that I have around, because usually you can cut them to size. The length doesn't really matter. Yeah, so make sure to keep those old brake cables, or a few at least. And what you want to do is basically I just size the little hanger in the middle of where I want to tighten it on the brake, or tighten on the cable, and then you slide the straddle cable through for these hangers anyway. A little different from the normal ones. These are older style, and you can see this is how the cable goes. And then with new brake cables, what you can do is just do it flush, pretty much flush to the rim, and then when you squeeze on the levers, it's going to give you a little bit of a stretch, and then eventually you do it a little bit, pull on the lever a bunch, and then it should stretch out enough to clear the wheel. Here, just doing the same thing for the back. For the back brake, you can see I'm giving a file a little bit of bike lube, sizing up the brake cables. You can see for this one, it goes on the side, and I had to size it a few times. Yeah, this one took a little bit, but I think it's worth it to get it right, because you can see now it goes around, it's flush, it's not sitting on the seat post or anything like that. But yeah, it still has kind of like a smooth line. So yeah, I was happy with that. And then putting the brake cable in, a little bit of bike lube there. Yeah, you only really need just one drop, and one drop goes a long way. But yeah, once that was through, I could tighten it on the back, repeat the same process. So yeah, hang in the middle, you just size out where you want that hanger to kind of sit, depending if you have fenders or rack or anything. And then you push the straddle cable or the old brake cable through, tighten it up, and then give it a trim. And then after you do that, you can make your minor adjustments depending on how you see fit. For me, I actually had to use the spoke tool to kind of true the wheel a little bit more. Both my wheels are a little bit off, so I had to do that a little bit more before my brakes were dialed. And then here, for some reason I always forget parts to drop in evaporust. So these are all the parts that I forgot. So yeah, brake, seat post clamp, axle, and seat post. And then yeah, just make sure you cover it up. Alright, so I'm going to let that sit for 24 hours and get back to it. And then while I wait for that, I decided I'm going to clean up the saddle. So I got this old turbo saddle, just secondhand, off Facebook Marketplace. And you can see it's pretty beat up. It's got a big hole there, and another hole there, and then it's got rust on the rails. But yeah, we're going to do our best to kind of refurb it. I use this little technique of putting a cardboard between the rail and the leather bit, just to protect it from WD-40, and when I'm cleaning it, it doesn't damage the leather. But yeah, basically just WD-40 wire brush all the rust off. It should come off pretty easily. These all the turbo rails that I've worked on, they are actually quite resilient, and the rust comes off fairly easy. And then just give it a clean on the inside. You can see it's looking pretty fresh already, just with a little bit of WD-40 and cleaning. That's looking good. So what we're going to do now is try to fix these fix these holes now. Yeah, it's not looking pretty good, but I'm going to use the Nitsu glue. Again, I got a tutorial on this, dedicated tutorial, but I'll show you here how. Basically, you just get this black stuff out, and you got to warm it up a little bit on your fingers, knead it, and then you can just kind of put it on, and then you have about, I don't know, 15 minutes before it kind of sets. And what you want to do is kind of smooth it out as quick as possible, and yeah, try not to touch it afterwards, because if you smooth it out and then you touch it after, then it's gonna stick to your fingers and then it's gonna create a mess. But what you want to do is just try to put it in there, fill up the hole. You can see what I'm doing, trying to smooth it out, and try. I think the main thing is try not to overdo it. If you overdo it, then it gets rougher and rougher. You can see on this side, I tried real hard to make it smooth, and every time there's a little bit left, and then I try to smooth it out a bit more, and it just ended up getting worse and worse. But this is what it ended up looking like. I was pretty happy with this, and I'm like, I'm gonna just let this dry for now. I'm not gonna give it a sand later. Here, putting on the rear mech while the Nitsu glue is drying. You got to wait for 24 hours for the saddle to dry before it hardens up and cures. Not too much on putting a rear D there. Here, 24 hours later, you can see what it looks like, completely clean. It puts a little bit of black tint on this stuff as well, but you can wash it off. And then here, if your seat post is pitted, or if the chrome is chrome plated and is pitted, your evaporust is going to take some of that chrome plating off as well. So you gotta be careful with chrome plating. But yeah, basically I just gave everything a clean WD-40 spray again, just to protect it. But yeah, I don't mind how that kind of looks as well. Obviously, it would be cool if it didn't kind of flake off, but yeah, not too bad. And I got these friction shifters to deal with the shifting. I'm going to keep it 3x7. So I think these shifters are pretty cool. They're Falcon branded, but I think the levers are really cool. Kind of like a square shape. And yeah, basically the black thing on the side tightens the friction, and then the silver levers pull on your gear cables and keep them in that position. And then to put that on, I need to take the stem off again, so you can just undo your straddle cable. And for these levers, you can push it back a little bit. That little quick release button on the lever as well to give you more slack. And then here you can see the bolt is too long for some reason. It hits the little shifter bit, so I ended up replacing the bolt with the shorter bolt. Yeah, you can see kind of what I did there. This nut actually has a cylinder bit that goes inside the little clamp there, so the bolt still works. And here, this is what it looks like after it's all on. Things looking pretty sharp. Usually I like it like a naked stem, because I think it looks a little bit cleaner. And here's the quick release again. But yeah, I think the friction shifters look pretty good. Nice little matchup. But yeah, it's looking pretty clean. This is 24 hours later. You can see it's hardened up. It's still like a little bit soft, and that's kind of what Nitsu glue will be like. It'll be like a little bit like rubber. But yeah, I'm gonna clean this up as best as possible. Give it a sand with 600 wet and dry, and then you'll see that a little bit later after I put everything on. Here, putting on a seat post. Make sure you grease it up. Yeah, some people put grease inside the seat tube as well, but I think just on the seat post is enough. And then, yeah, just clamp it down. I was looking for a 25.4 seat post as a replacement, because I didn't really like these guts, but yeah, it was really hard to find like a second-hand one, so I I'm just going to run this. What you can do is also you can hide the guts within the saddle, if your saddle is kind of tall enough, kind of like this. And yeah, you can kind of not see the guts after that. So that's a little tip if you want to install it like that. And then yeah, just use a wrench to tighten it up. Putting the front quick release on, so that was all cleaned up from the evaporust too, so that's nice there. Here, chucking on some bar tape. Got this Dita bar tape. It's just the foam one. You can see it's a little bit thinner than the last one I used for for Joel's bike, the green bike. But yeah, it comes with these plastic. I don't think these are carbon fiber ends. They just look like carbon fiber. And what you want to do is first peel back your leather rubber, and then I wrap from the inside so that when you're putting your hands on the drops, it tightens the bar tape, so it won't unloosen the bar tape. It'll tighten it instead, and then you just wind it up all the way to the lever with these thin little levers. What you can do is wrap it up, down, and then back across. And what this will do is it will reverse the wrapping on the top of your bars. So when you kind of pull down on the top of your bars, it will tighten the bar tape as well. I didn't I didn't do this for the Joel's bike because the bar tape was too thick and the leather was too thick. But I definitely got a lot of comments when I posted a video on Instagram about people telling me that I did it the wrong way. But yeah, sometimes with thick bar tape, you got to choose which you want, either on the drop or on the top. But for thinner bar tape like this, you can do both. Here, I'm just cutting electrical tape in half. So I have two pieces, and I decided to go a little bit thinner here, just to give it a little bit more of a neater look. And then put the cap on. You just squash the bar tape in there. It should go on pretty well, depending on what bar end it is. But yeah, I think that's looking good. No gaps anywhere. Looking fresh. I usually overlap the bar tape about 1/3 of the bar tape, and then here you can just see me repeating it on the same side. Make sure you cut it straight on the top for that nice finish. And yeah, pretty happy with these, how this turned out. I think the tape looks pretty cool as well. And then yeah, I think the black matches the bike, the front of the bike as well, front of the frame. Here, putting on the cranks, I did run a poll whether to put grease on here or not, and yeah, it's been a long debate on whether to put grease on square tapers. But yeah, I'm definitely on the 4 camp. Just a little bit of grease goes a long way. If you ever had to take apart seized cranks, you will know why. And then here you're just putting it on, tying it down. Yeah, so initially I was going to change the cranks over to X-Age, silver X-Age, and then use these black chain rings. I thought that looked pretty cool. But yeah, I had a real problem on Facebook Marketplace. The guy didn't send them for ages, and I always had to follow up with him. And then I got sick of doing that, sick of waiting around, and then I wanted to finish the video as well. So yeah, I'll probably do an update on that once I get them, probably just on Instagram or something. But yeah, Facebook Marketplace, you know how it is. And then here, just putting on the front mech. Make sure it clears the chain ring. You can see for these BioPaste chain rings, they're oval. So you just got to make sure you swing the crank arm all the way around and the chain ring to make sure it's clearing it. It should be about 2 to 3 mil from the top of the teeth. And yeah, you can kind of see just like that. I don't know where the oval bit it's on this chain ring, but yeah, it clears. And then here, just putting on the gear cables now, and just cutting them to size. And then what you want to do is basically just size them and then turn the handlebars left and right to make sure it's not rubbing on anything or not yeah, hitting anything. And then yeah, just give them a trim. Make sure you measure twice, and then same with the rear mech. This was a little bit long, so I decided to give it a slight trim as well. But yeah, really up to you on how long you want it. I just make sure it's a smooth enough line for the cables. And then yeah, same, file it down, clear the hole out with the spoke and a little bit of bike lube. And then you can just thread the gear cables in. Don't forget to thread it in this little bottom guide on the bottom bracket for the gear cables. I've done builds where I forgot to do this and had to redo it. a little bit of hassle, but gotta make sure it's right. And then if you don't forget, you don't have to redo it. You tighten on the rear mech. Just kind of loose for now. I can always tighten it later. And then same with the front mech. Yeah, and what I do is I kind of just like put them in like a higher gear and then let them stretch overnight and then readjust them. And then here, yeah, setting this back looks pretty looks pretty gnarly, but yeah, a little sanding goes a long way. So this is just 600 wet and dry. You can give a little bit of spray with water every now and then to help the process from your sandpaper from plugging up. But yeah, that's looking pretty good. And then I use this Dove moisturizing cream to give the saddle a little bit of life. It has coconut oil in it as well, so that that really helps. And it might darken your saddle a little bit, but once it dries, it should lighten back up. You'll probably see how it looks on the final bike. But yeah, that's looking pretty good. I was pretty happy with that. Little resto, and then here setting the front mech limit. So the screw closest to the inside usually guides the inside. You can see it's almost even hitting the tire, and what you want to do is line up to the closest chain ring. Just make sure it's going to give enough room to clear the chain, to clear the gears. You can see here I pushed it in more. Just wind down that screw and it should move that silver bit over. And then here you can see that the gear cable is really close to the tire, so I had to use a little zip tie. Just loose zip tie just to help that wire, guide that wire. There's no extra guide for that, so made my own there. And then yeah, just tying on the gear cables here, giving it a trim, and then putting on the caps on as well. But yeah, I usually do an inch or so, 2 inches, I don't know, somewhere between there. Just long enough so if you need to adjust it, you got some room. And then just clamp down on the. I just do one clamp on the cable ends, cable caps there. Some people do two caps. You can see for this one that's close to tire, it was a little too close. I ended up trimming it a little bit more, just in case you get a little bit of mud or anything. But I think that's looking good. And then yeah, same with the front here. You can see it's a little close to the tire, so gave it a little bit of trim. And then here, putting on the chain. It's a SRAM 8-speed chain with a quick link. Some chains I get don't have a quick link, but what you want to do is just size it up. Basically, biggest on the cassette, and then biggest on the front, and then add one full link on there, and it should be pretty right. And then what you want to do after that is just loop it back through, make sure it's going through the rear derailleur the right way, it's not getting caught on anything. And then for the quick link, you just pull it tight with your hands. And yeah, and that's on. So yeah, I'm going to run that for a little bit, and then if I need to take another link out, I can. And then here, the chain, different chain from different companies come either a little bit sticky or a lot sticky. For these SRAM ones, it's just a little sticky, so I gave it a quick clean and re-lubed it. If it's really sticky, what I like to do is just take it off, put it in a tray, and then clean it properly. But the SRAM ones aren't too bad. And then here, putting on these pedals on. These are just ones that got secondhand again. BSD Safari saddles, nice looking platform. I think they're pretty cool shape as well. Pretty solid. For some reason, yeah, all the BMX pedals I got, they take a little bit to break in. They're like a little bit tight at the beginning, so they don't turn super well. But once you have a ride or two, they kind of break in and they're a lot smoother. I don't know whether that's just cheap pedals or just BMX pedals in general. Alright, that's the last thing, and here's the final bike. Alright, that's a wrap. Hope you liked it. Super stoked with how this one turned out. Rides really smooth. I think the friction shifters make it fun as well. Same with the drop bars, a little bit of different hand positions. You'll ride this bike for hours and not get tired. Yeah, not too different from the original bike, but yeah, let me know what you think. Thank you for watching. And yeah, shout out to all my supporters, people who bought sticker packs. If you're looking for a sticker pack, it's up on my shop. As always, thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.